Welcome to Tree Doctors. Today we're starting the program in Ravenden, Arkansas. Let's catch up with Ed Dickey, let him tell you a little bit about what he does to take care of your trees, and then we'll go out in the field. It all starts right now on Tree Doctors.
You know, great strides have been made in the chemical community as the technology come available now where you don't need to clumber some capsules to tree, and we can put actually 9 or 10 different products at one time in a tree. You can see it boiling out from around the base of that as I'm injecting this into the soil ball. Amino acids, different miticides, insecticides. We can choose what we want to treat for, and we get a long residual from this. So you get a year's worth of good or longer out of our injection when we do a tree. An actual moat of chemicals put around your tree, and it's all moisture activated. So as the weather hits it or the rain, it supercharges it again and carries through the tree. So to get rid of your unwanted insects or to revive a tree to put new life in it, you know, that's what we do. We put the zap back in the sap. We give new life to old trees. That's what we do. We're the Tree Doctors. Dickey Tree Service in your yellow pages under trees.
Let's catch up with Ed Dickey and let him give us a few more tips on how we can take care of our trees right now on Tree Doctors.
You know, if you get ready to plant a tree in your yard and you're wondering whether you got any underground water lines or stuff in the way, there's an easy way to do that. Just take you a metal coat hanger, cut it, make you 2 pieces like this, hold them loosely in your hand. As you walk out across the yard, when it crosses the water pipe, it will cross for you. And you'll know there's a water line or sewer line right underneath there. That'll save you quite a bit of digging. And most people know where their water meters are coming in at your house, so it's an easy way to get used to doing it. Go out there where you know the line is, and once you see how it works, and it's just this will be a helpful little tool putting your trees down, because first place, you don't want to plant a tree right on top of your water line or right on top of your sewer line. That might help save a tree or two and save you back a little bit in the future. I'm here in Pocahontas with Hugh Steimel on the grounds of the Catholic Church here, and a few years ago, what made you call me in about this tree, Hugh?
Well, we were noticing up in the top, we were getting some yellow around the edges in a few places, and so that's why I thought, well, I better get somebody up here that knows what they're doing to get this tree cleared up and see if it's still healthy and see what needed to be done on it, you know, and so that's why we gave you a call.
Right, and back then we treated the tree and left you some follow-up instructions, which is the grounds people have done on the tree. And there's a lot of history here with it. You have any documentation or have any idea how old this tree is, Hugh?
Well, the church here was, they started the groundwork in it in 1898, so that's been, what, about 107 years ago. And the tree, probably at that time, we have some pictures in the church taken from down at the street level there. And this tree at that time in 1898 was probably about somewhere between 18 and 20 inches in diameter at that time. So I'm assuming that was a 40 or 50-year-old tree then.
Right, and it's a white oak. They grow slow, so it's got some age on it. Now you've got some other interesting trees on the grounds here, don't you?
Yes, we do. There was a church over here before this church here was built. It was back in the late 1800s that was there, and some of these cedar trees of that church, you can see some of these cedar trees that were in that picture of that church.
Okay. We're going to move around here in a minute, and we're going to talk about some of these other trees, and you can give us a little history about them.
All right, will do.
This is one of these giant cedar trees that Hugh's been talking about, and there's several of them here on the grounds, and you don't see them that big much, do you, Hugh?
No, you sure don't. These trees have been here for a long time. Like we discussed earlier, the original first church was built here in about 1870 something, maybe 1878, I'm thinking. And the pictures that we have of that church, these cedar trees, they were in that picture. So, and they were pretty good sized trees then. So these trees are old.
They're older than that 150-year-old white oak behind us then, aren't they?
I believe they are. I really do.
So the Catholic Church, this whole property right here is really old to Pocahontas, isn't it?
It is. It's extremely old. The church is over 100 years old, and like I said, we had some pictures, some good pictures taken back in the 1800s that were showing these trees here at that time.
I hadn't talked about how you're involved with the grounds. I hadn't thought about it till now. What do you do here? You just kind of oversee for them? And
Well, I'm afraid I'm on the building committee, and the building committee, we have to take care of not only the building and remodeling and stuff, but also take care of the lawns and the trees and everything. And I about figured out the only way that you can get off of these committees is you have to die to get off of them. And but they have assured me, the church council has, is if that tree dies, they're going to make my casket out of it. So that's why I need you to make sure that tree stays alive for us.
all right, we can do that. Well, that's good that the committee holds you on there till you die. You got something to do. But all jokes aside, Hugh takes these very seriously, and when he had me treat these a few years ago, this big one down here, and then I've treated it again since that. If nothing goes awry, we're probably going to deep root feed this tree this fall, and which has never been done. Is that correct?
Right, that's right. I don't really remember somebody deep root feeding the tree in the past, but we're real proud of these trees up here. The church members and everything, they like these trees. They don't want anything happening to them and everything, and that's why anytime that I see something where a tree is getting stressed or whatever, that's why we call you, and rely on you to come up and help us out and get it taken care of. And we appreciate you doing this. You get up here quick, and that always helps, But we really appreciate it.
Well, they're important. Trees are important, and if you wait too long, that's like I'd instructed Hugh to have a trimmer come in and take some dead branches out, so that was a hazard to the walkway leading up into the church. And we was disappointed at the trimmer because he's afraid cutting dead branches was going to stress a tree. He should know better than that.
Well, I would think that you could cut dead limbs. It's not going to hurt anything. And like you had said, we don't really need to cut the canopy or the live stuff. Just get the dead out. And so, we're going to be trying to get somebody up here to take care of cut the dead parts out.
Exactly. Somebody knows what they're doing and knows that you're doing the tree some good, because once fall is here and the leaves are off, it's very difficult to identify these branches, and it's much easier now. And for the safety of the people, this needs to be done before the leaves do fall. Hugh, behind us here, there's another one of these big old cedars. And this nice, tell me what we're looking at here, this rock wall stuff.
Well, it's a grotto that was built. It was in the early 30s, I think 30 or 31. That was built by some local people here in the parish. They were a lot of them that came over from Germany years ago, and they were rock builders and masons and everything. And so they built that grotto in I believe it was 1931, and so it's been there a long time.
Oh, it's in wonderful shape too. It's just, it's held up. They was excellent craftsmen, wasn't they? Did they also work on, well, I'm sure the craftsmen that did that. What year was the church actually?
Well, the church was started, they dug the footing in 1898 and built it from there. The rock was quarried it was quarried about 2 blocks west of here. Down on the creek bottom down there, they had the quarries there, and they brought it all up here. And of course, they didn't have backhoes and lifts and forklifts and everything, so it was just all done by hand. And there's some huge rocks in that building, and it's but it took them about 7 years to build it.
Oh, be doggone. Heck of a structure, isn't it? It's beautiful.
It is. It's a big structure. It's been here a long time.
Well, it's like the trees. The trees fit the situation of their old structure, and I'm going to do my best to keep them going for you, and maybe in the future I'll come back here and we'll visit again, and we'll see what good we've done on these trees.
Well, I appreciate it. We appreciate you helping us out up here.
You know, when we look at a tree to check it, there's a lot of different things we look at other than just the trunk and sawdust and stuff we told you about. The size of the leaves and the condition of them, whether it's showing dead, whether the presence of insects on the branches. There's just, once we put it all together, we can pretty well figure out what's going on with a tree and how that tree has been surviving the last 4 or 5 years, whether you fertilized it or whether stress has really took its toll. Because each one of the growing patterns from the last 4 or 5 years is right there present for us to look at. And it tells us whether it was a good wet season or how the tree's been doing. So when we look at a tree, we look at the whole tree. We'd love to be able to look underground at the root system, and we're getting better at that. But that's an important part of the tree too. So we always keep that in mind when we're checking a tree, and we check them fully. That's how we check a tree. We're here in Jonesboro, and here with me is Dr. Bob Jackson. And Bob, why don't you tell our viewers what first got you calling me back a few years ago?
Well, I had a couple of trees at the office that were obviously stressed and had I thought, a scale infection. I did hate to see something that God took 100 years to make die in 100 days. So I called you to try to nip it in the bud or save its life. And then, of course, I care about the health of the trees in my yard, which I have at least 100 plus. We know because you've treated them, and a lot more than when you start counting than what you imagine.
Right, and this was, it's been several years ago, and we initially treated them, and could you tell the difference after we come in here and started working on them?
Yes, yeah, I could tell the difference, and of course you have to follow it up with still feeding them and give them the nutrients that they need to keep them healthy and not drought stressed and all that. But what you do is to help prevent the actual disease process and the insects that cause damage to a tree, whether it's healthy or not, especially when it's not healthy.
Exactly, and that's when the stress enters into it, like the doc said, that as the tree goes down and then everything else happens to it. That's why the follow-up with the nutrient and stuff. But he's got a beautiful yard here, and if you'll let us, we're going to move the camera and go talk about some of these trees.
Sure, help yourself. Do some yard work while you're here.
I don't know about that. Dr. Jackson, I just now remembered to tell the viewers a little bit about what went on this damage of this tree.
Yes, backhoe came through here in September of '01, 4 years ago, to put in a French drain for the basement, and pruned all the roots on the north side of the tree, and also that does some stress to the tree, and also did about a 4-inch wide gash in the trunk of the tree. And this is when I first called you at my home, because I was worried about this tree since it was severely root pruned, being stressed out or killed due to construction shock, like you see around town all the time. When people build a house, what they don't kill immediately dies a year or two later.
Exactly right. And I told Dr. Jackson at the time to measure that and kind of monitor that, and you've been doing that since you had it.
Yes, it was 4 inches or maybe wider. I know at the beginning of this summer it shrunk down to 3.5 inches wide at the narrowest point, and now it's just a little over 2 inches. So it's the cambium, whatever you want to call it, it's closing together, and I'm watching that all the time.
Right, it's compartmentalizing, it sure is, and with that treatment, it'll keep on. Once it gets in the system, the tree will keep responding to the treatment, and here's a good case for that. And this is a white oak tree, and it's an important tree too.
Yeah, it's the mother of all white oaks. It's what every deer hunter wants to see on his land, on his lease. This is the tree that all wildlife prefer the mast from, the white oak acorn.
There you go. And you're retired now from dentistry, aren't you?
Right, I'm retired. I'm unemployed.
Well, let's talk about what you're doing since you're retired. You do a little bit of hunting too, don't you?
Yeah, quite a bit. That's what keeps me sane.
We'll move around here, and I want to show the viewers just a few of the horns that I like of his. I finished my interview here with Dr. Jackson. When I first met him, as I was mentioning off camera, that when I went in his office, I thought I was in the Wild Kingdom with all the mounts and in his office. And here we're in the carport of his home, just a few of the racks.
Yeah, these actually are just the ones, the elk that didn't make 300-inch mark, that I had to just do horn mounts and put in the garage.
So you are a big game hunter.
That's right. It's a good problem to have, I guess. I don't have enough room for all the trophies I've bagged in the last 15 years, but that's another story. But
Well,
deer hunters will appreciate that.
well, sure. And the main thing, you're enjoying your retirement too, aren't you?
Except for the yard work.
Yes, sir. All right. Well, we might check back with you in 3 or 4 years and see if you're still enjoying yourself.
Okay, appreciate it.
Thank you. You know, anytime a tree's cut down and you can see what we call, this is a blue area here. What this indicates is there was metal in this tree. And it was pretty deep in this tree, matter of fact. It's a gate hinge or something that was put in there a long time ago. And the loggers have an expression for this, or they call it the log came down blue. So it won't go to the sawmill, needless to say, because they would hit something. So they would have to cut up above this until the blue area stopped showing up in the log. And it'll generally go a foot or two up from where the metal is. It'll be more dominant nearest the metal. And but that's what they mean when they're referring to, you know, a log coming down blue. And just makes sense. That's what it means. And just some metal in there from years ago. So there again, a tree is telling you. You just got to know what to watch for. I'm here right outside of Pocahontas, right off of Highway 90. It used to be the Richwell Furniture Gallery. Now he's in the media, multimedia business here. And here with me is the owner, Jack Wells. And Jack, why don't you tell the viewers what was going on with this tree about 7 years ago when you called me?
Well, we'll get the camera over and show, but this thing was splitting right up through the middle right there, and we were extremely scared we were going to lose this tree at that time. And my wife's office is right there, and I told Mr. Dickey right then, I says, I don't want this thing to fall on my wife. She either wants it cut down or fixed. And I've been told by Mr. London Broadway, who does a lot of landscaping up in this area, that this tree may very well be the oldest oak tree in Randolph County. And as you can see from the size of it, it probably is, Ed.
Yeah, if it's not the oldest, it's the largest. It is an extremely large tree, Jack. And Jack had me put 2 rods in it. He's correct. I still remember that statement. He sure didn't want that to fall on the building because you can imagine what would happen to a building that a tree of this size would fall on. And you hadn't done anything since we put the rods in, have you?
No, not at all. Every now and then we come out and take a look at it, and my wife will take a look out here at it every now and then, make sure it's okay, and it seems to be holding up pretty good.
Oh, yes, and like I say, it was over 7 years ago, and I'm just tickled that I had a part in helping save, because y'all was in the process about to cut it down, weren't you?
That's right. We just built these buildings, and as you can see, this tree covers a good part of our building. We got 28,000 square feet here. It is a huge tree, and it shades quite a bit of this building, and we keep our utilities down that way.
Oh, I bet you do. It has to have a big effect. It sticks out over the building. I don't know how far.
And I'd much rather save a tree than cut one down any time.
Right, you got some beautiful trees around this property here, and as well as you had me treat some over at your home, some oak trees, but none of them this big, were they?
No, not quite this big, but some large trees, Ed.
Well, thank you, Jack, for taking a minute and talking about your tree.
Well, I'm glad you came back out and check on my tree.
Yes, sir. Glad to do it. Here we have a green ash tree. It's been growing beneath this southern red oak for a number of years. And the homeowner here liked it because it gave this part of the yard a little bit of character. So I recommended that because of this weak crotch here, the lower branch, that we put a bracing rod in it and treat it, and which he had me do. You can see the nuts sticking out here. And you can do this without hurting the other tree, simply because this tree has grew here that long, that many years, without hurting anything. And he just has to take a little double care here. When he feeds the tree, they get double fed, because you got 2 different trees growing close together. And needless to say, when he does this flower bed, they get a little bit of feeding too. But you can keep a tree, even if another one is overgrowing it, if you take the right corrective measures to keep it from breaking up and make it a viable tree. I'm here in Jonesboro with Nola Lackey, and Nola, it's been a couple of years since I had you on the show and we talked about your trees, and here a while back you had me back to treat your pine trees. What's your overall thoughts of your trees?
They've been doing great. I've been real pleased with it, and they still are doing great.
The tree behind your house, what you recently called me on a little over 2 years ago, it was in bad shape at that time, wasn't it, that oak?
Definitely, but it's great now.
Yeah, I can tell from here it's got a good rich green color to it, and it don't ooze at the bottom from all that borer damage like before, does it?
No way, no.
Now, you also had me treat the dogwoods along the side of your house, and you and Jay had dug those up and planted those how many years ago?
Probably about 10 years.
Yes, ma'am, and they're still doing good too, aren't they?
They're doing great. They were real pretty this summer.
The reason Nola had me back is the pine trees. She wanted to, I had her on a spray program on that, but she wanted me to treat them so she wouldn't have to go through that and just let them take care of themselves. And correct me if I'm speaking wrong, Nola, but you just wanted to enjoy your trees and stop some of the working. Is that right?
Right, right. I didn't want to have to do it, so I'd rather for you to do it than me.
Yes, ma'am, because you stay busy just day in, day out in this yard. You just got a pretty yard. You're a flower person, aren't you?
Absolutely. Flowers all over the place.
You don't happen to know how many different kinds you got here, do you?
I have no idea.
I know it's always a pretty yard. I enjoy coming to Nola's yard because it's always got different flowers and pretty flowers. And in fact, I don't even know the names of half of them, but I bet you know the names of every one, don't you?
Just about.
Yes, ma'am. Well, thank you, Nola, for talking about your trees, and we might stop in and visit on you here in another year or two and see how they're doing.
Sounds good to me. Thank you.
You know, it's funny kind of how some people think of trees and appreciate trees, and some of them don't appreciate trees. They get around a piece of 200-year-old antique furniture. Some people just go, wow. They'll walk right by a 250-year-old tree and not even think nothing about it. So kind of keep that in mind when you're out there in the forest and the parks looking. That there's a lot of those trees older than a lot of them antiques that you'd appreciate. And they're still alive. They're live antiques. Take care of them. You'll be glad you did. I caught Darlene Woods out here in the yard, Mike Woods' wife, and you're having a problem with your green spruce here, aren't you, Darlene?
Right. It's the top of it just all of a sudden has a dead place. Happened real quick.
I looked at it for Darlene, and it appears to have mites, spider mites in it, as well as on the trunk you can see a bark beetle boring. And I told her to use an insecticide as well as a miticide, because most people aren't aware that a normal insecticide don't take care of the mites. It takes a miticide also. Sometimes you can get a blend of a combination of a miticide and insecticide, but we'll get some of this on this spruce. And how long has it been here, Miss Woods?
It's been less than a week.
I'm talking about the spruce. You've had it here a good while.
Oh yeah, the spruce is probably about 8 years old.
Yes, ma'am. I knew it's a pretty one, and you got the mate to it right over there. So I'm gonna try to arm you with the knowledge you need to fix this. We're here in Jonesboro, and here with me is Jason Wilkie. And Jason, why don't you tell me where we're at and what you got going on here?
We're at the Earl Community Center, and we're standing in front of a tulip poplar tree that we just planted as part of our Arbor Day celebration on September 30th. And Arbor Day is just a day where we celebrate planting of trees and encourage the community to plant trees. It's also a day we have to do to become Tree City USA, and that's one of our goals as a city is to get that name for our city. We have to show that we have an ordinance and an urban forestry council, and we celebrate Arbor Day. And then what that does is helps us get forestry grants. It also says to the community that we care about our environment and we care about trees.
Right. The last time I was with you, you had just had a survey, in the process of doing a survey counting the trees in town, aerial survey. Is that right?
That's correct. We did we hired a consultant to come in and through grant funds paid for a consultant to come in and actually do some study of our trees, what kind of trees we have, how old are those trees, how much coverage does the tree canopy cover of our area. And one of the findings that they found was that about 17% of the land area of Jonesboro is covered by trees, which is better than what we had anticipated, but really statistics show that we should be around 40% to have a really healthy urban forest. And so we want to encourage people to plant trees, plant them in appropriate places, and to get our urban forestry canopy up to around 40%.
Right. Now, there were some other places here in Jonesboro also y'all planted trees. Where was that?
We did. We planted a cherry tree that'll be the cornerstone of a nice flower bed at City Cemetery, and we planted 2 trees, a red maple and another cherry tree out at Hillcrest Elementary School.
Right. Well, that's great. The city getting involved, and hopefully the community getting involved too, because you know, 17% is not very many if you know, part of a community.
It's really not. And when you think about the benefits that trees provide, from reducing temperature because of the shade that they provide, to water absorption during heavy rains that reduces the water runoff, to just the aesthetic beauty. People have done studies that show that people spend more money in shaded environments, and that property values go up when you have trees on your property. I mean, all of these benefits are a result of trees, not to mention the very basic things that trees produce oxygen. Right. We breathe oxygen, and so trees are really important. And I think it's good to have a group of people that are focusing on those forestry concerns and encouraging people to think about trees, encouraging developers to think about preserving trees in forested areas that they're developing.
That's right. In case people hadn't caught other shows with you, what is your title here in Jonesboro?
I'm the Director of Parks and Recreation for the City of Jonesboro.
Right, and it's a bunch of trees under your care, isn't it?
That is. We have a Craighead Forest Park, which has 690 acres, and most of that densely forested area, except for the lake.
Right. You do a good job with them, and we'll be visiting back later on and see what y'all are doing in the future.
Well, thank you, Ed. We care about our trees, and we hope that we can share that with other people.
Thank you a lot.
All right.
You know, some trees have insect problems. Some just have construction damage. Well, we can handle them both generally at the same time. I'm using a soil injection here, building a mold of chemicals all around the root ball. It gets translocated into the crown of the tree. It has a very long residual. Stays working for a year or better, killing insects as well as growing new feeder roots and increasing the canopy of the tree. 9 different chemicals is going in this at once. So there's so much we can do that we used to couldn't do, and in most cases it's cheaper than it used to be. And just name me just any one thing that's come down in price. Well, taking care of your trees have come down in price. Give us a call. You'll be surprised. We're the Tree Doctor, Dickey Tree Service, in your yellow pages under trees. You know, all living things need air and water, some food, and it's like this little doggy here. You know, when you plant your trees in the fall, people tend to forget them if you get a long dry spell. Water them trees a little bit. That way in the spring they'll have a root system developed that'll let them take off like gangbusters. And first year after you plant them young ones, kind of keep a watchful eye on them, and maybe a little recorded chart of when you water and when you didn't, and when you fertilized and when you didn't. And they'll stay healthy, like our little dog here. Take care of them trees. You'll be glad you did.
Well, that's all the time we have for Tree Doctors today. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember, if you need to get in touch with Ed Dickey, it's easy. Call the number below or go to dickeytree.com. You can catch Tree Doctors every Saturday and Sunday at 6 o'clock right here on KAIT. We'll see you next time on Tree Doctors.